Okay, so this is day 3, non-consecutive day 3 of Mishlei 24, 3 through 4, which has been difficult, but I feel like we made progress. But the goal today is to get some Mishlaic idea, okay? Because we've spent most of the days in theoretics, okay, but we haven't really brought it home to our puzzle in light of what we did last time. So let's review everything. With wisdom, a house will be built, with understanding it will be established or founded, and with knowledge, rooms will be filled with all precious and pleasing wealth. Main questions: what are Chochmah, Tevunah, and Daas? What is this bias? How is it built through Chochmah? What does it mean to establish the bias? How do you do that through Tevunah? What are the hon, yakar, v'na'im, as opposed to just wealth? What does it mean to fill your rooms with them? What does kol add? Why specify rooms? And then what's the relationship between these 3 clauses? How does each clause modify or add to the previous ones? Who's the audience? What's the derech nister? I don't think we're going to get to that. Is this connected to the previous dozen pesukim? If so, how? And what is the subject of the pasuk? Okay, so we had Yaakov's main idea, which I'm just going to say again, which is that if you take these terms as interchangeable just for knowledge, and you take the building a house, establishing a house, and filling your rooms with wealth as also kind of interchangeable as just like being successful in your material, like estate, I guess. So then the main message is, don't think that just like you know that you can't build a house, a physical house, again, this is taking it literally, just like you can't build a physical house or make it stable without Chochmah and Tevunah, meaning without knowledge, so too you can't rely on getting wealth without that. Don't think you can just get wealth in some sort of magical way. That's wishful thinking, and it also, even if you got it by a fluke, it's not going to last. So that was our that's the only shot we have with the puzzle so far. Yeah.
Is it ever possible to read the Hebrew as should be built?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That really
he shall build.
Meaning.
That's true. We didn't really entertain that. Yeah. He shall build a house with wisdom and establish it with understanding and fill it right, which would rule. How does it?
Well, just an intuitional approach that, right, you need to develop a certain receptacle, right, in order to then have this pleasing wealth, right? Yeah. And if you build the proper container for something, then it will naturally take in those things. Yeah. But if you don't have the proper container for something, then you're going to be like, well, I have a house here. Why isn't any wealth in it? Right. And then you're getting frustrated because you think that your container is supposed to be something that is developing and containing wealth. And the reason that it's not is because you haven't built a proper house. Okay, right. Done it with Chochmah.
I think that's a good idea. I think that is a good idea. And I think 2 examples of that are either, well, I guess 3 examples: lottery winners, professional athletes, and kids who grow up with like fantastically wealthy parents who just inherit the money or are just given the money without any sort of like preparation, training, work to develop the skills and the virtues of like being able to have the wealth and use it properly. Is like these people end up getting the wealth, but then because it doesn't rest on a foundation or in a receptacle of Chochmah, it gets squandered. They end up losing it all. They end up like making bad decisions, which actually cause active harm, not just like a loss of money. So that's a good, yeah. All right, that's a good idea. Also good. So we at least got 2 ideas from this. Okay. All right. So now we were in the middle of doing Rabbeinu Yonah, which we will review now. Oh, sorry. There's one more Rabbeinu Yonah. We were doing multiple Rabbeinu Yonahs. Okay, Mishlei 23. No, 24. No. What did I call it? Rabbeinu Yonah. Let's try that. Mishlei, yeah, there we go. Okay, so Rabbeinu Yonah, I am going to read it again, okay, because I feel like it's been 2 days, because it has been 2 days. Okay, so he says that, so this is where he's going to talk about the relationship between Chochmah and Tevunah and the definitions. So I'm just going to read it in English. It says, so he's talking about the 4 stages of acquiring Chochmah, and he said, the 4 stages of, limud Chochmah, okay, and that he's using Chochmah in the broad sense. So the first step is, he says, the first step of acquiring Chochmah is to listen attentively and discerningly with your ear to the words of your teachers who teach about the truth with clarity, and to orient your teaching, or to be precise with your hearing without any addition or subtraction. There are some people who are not precise in their listening, and they add or detract from it. And also, sometimes they imagine that they heard the word yes instead of no, or mutter instead of asr, and other things like that. And Chazal list in the enumeration of the midos of Chochmah someone who listens carefully to his to what one who's precise in his hearing. Okay, so we said there, on a simple level, you have to listen carefully and be accurate. But that's the intellectual virtue. But the psychological virtue is you have to be on guard against warping what you hear through your own emotions, right? Is that when you really want to hear yes and you hear no, you have to make sure that you have to make sure that your desires don't distort what you hear, right? Or that you don't project. So this is both an intellectual virtue and a midos virtue. Okay, second step, and this is where he defines the terms. Second step is that you turn your heart away from all worldly desires and lusts in order to be misbonin in your chochmah, in order to contemplate, to analyze your chochmah. And after listening precisely, the person should analyze, contemplate, discern that which he heard and learned until he arrives at understanding of the reasons behind the things and understands bina in them. That's what Chazal mean when they say, first a person should learn, and then afterwards he should do svara on what he learns and go in depth and analyze. Behold, okay, so that we said is both on a micro level and a macro level, that when you're doing a sugya, you have to get the facts and then you have to analyze. But then also in your own personal development, there's a certain breadth of knowledge that you need to work on getting before you turn all your energy to svara. And people who only work on the svara and don't build that foundation of factual, they call them yedios, right? Like factual knowledge, are going to be severely lacking, because you could svara size all you want, but if it's not rooted in a basic knowledge of the subject matter, then you're going to be your svara is going to be off base. Okay, then he defines the terms. He says, behold, the wisdom of a person is receiving the words of Chochmah from teachers, and Tevunah is understanding in them to know the good reasons behind them, until he can derive one thing from another and compare one thing to another that he has learned in a proper manners of comparison. And likewise, Chazal said that the Navon is someone who can understand one thing from another, and therefore he warns here about inclining your heart to understanding, because a person needs to turn his thought away from all things and to devote his heart singularly to Tevunah. So we said here too, there's an intellectual virtue and an emotional virtue. The intellectual virtue is that you refine the art of induction and deduction, so you can take what you've learned and not just apply it straight across the board, but you can derive new principles and you can derive new applications. But in order to do that, you need to work on your midos and your psyche, because once you're in the realm of intuition and not just applying things straight across, when you're in the realm of intuition, your intuition can be influenced by your desires. So that's why concurrently with working on Tevunah, you also need to be working on your midos in a way that tries to shield your mind's direction from emotional influences, because there's emotional intuition, there's intellectual intuition, and they can easily get mixed. Yeah.
And by midos specifically, how are we talking about this is helping you not get trapped in a false intuition?
That, let's say, for example, we didn't come up with examples last time. Let's just come up with an example here. Let's say, I think philosophy is a good example. So in philosophy, then it's something that people identify as an intellectual area. Mm-hmm. But if you're unaware that your philosophy is being influenced by what you want to be true, or what you don't want to be true, or fear of the implications of the conclusions you reach, then those emotional dispositions will skew your thinking in ways that you're not aware of.
Yeah, and how does midos affect that emotional influence?
So midos, I guess part of this is going to depend on what you define as perfection of midos. So my go-to for now, at least, is the Rambam's middle path in Hilchos Deos, which is that your emotions are not pulling you in one extreme or another, but they're fluid, to the point where they will your psyche is open to responding to whatever your Chochmah dictates or whatever direction your Chochmah goes. So the example I always give, because it's the easiest one, is the Rambam says there's being stingy and there's being a spendthrift. Stingy is you can't bring yourself to spend money, or I guess miserly, can't bring yourself to spend money. Spendthrift is whatever money you have, then you just spend, you can't bring yourself to save. Frugality means that you're your emotional relationship to money is completely fluid and will respond based on whatever your mind says, which is if it is rational to save, I'll save, and if not, not.
If you're going to get a return on investment, then
right, exactly. Then you can part with your money very easily, and because you'll know that you're going to get in the future. But like, or let's say like, or even for some emotional reason, let's say like you want to celebrate, and some people when they want to celebrate, they can't bring themselves to spend money, so you allow yourself to do that. And this type of thing, let's say like you're in you're not just in the individual decision. Let's say you're thinking about financial planning or studying economics. If you're not aware of your own emotions and you don't work on your midos, then those dispositions will influence the way that you think and the conclusions you reach. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then the hardest one is Daas. Sorry. Yeah. So just to summarize, so we have Chochmah, which is received knowledge, and the midos perfection is being on guard against projecting. Tevunah, which is derived knowledge and or induced knowledge, and the midos component is making sure that your desires are all channeled into Tevunah. Okay. And we also characterize the difference between the Chacham and the Navon as the dependent learner and the independent learner, or the non-creative learner and the creative learner. Okay, and it's a spectrum. Okay, it's not like you're in one category or the other. Then the hardest one is Daas, which I don't fully know. Rabbeinu Yonah on 3:19 and 20 says that he notes that the order is always Chochmah, Bina, and Daas, and he says Chochmah, Tefilah, Ozen, Chacham Yichashev. So that's what you're listening to. That's the knowledge you receive. Navon is maybe davar mitoch davar. Umigim mizos el hadea inyan shelo yimtza davar lahavin mitocho. Dea is in areas where you don't have a basis to be mavin from. So Bina is mavin davar mitoch davar. Okay, is that you're working with principles and you're arriving at new applications or new principles from those. Dea is, he says, is you don't have something to derive from, but yavin mishikol hadas is you're going pure intuition, based on pure intuition. Vizit sarich likdusha v'yira v'das kedoshim. That needs an even higher level of psychological refinement of kedusha, where you've transcended your animalistic nature. Yira, in terms of a certain subordination to God's will, or however you want to define yira, and then das kedoshim, which the footnote guy also says I have no idea what he's talking about. But something it's going to have some other degree of emotional perfection, and das is really like when you're on the cutting edge as an independent thinker and going into completely new areas. There's no roadmap. So that's the ultimate level of creativity. Okay. Now I mentioned last time, but I couldn't find the pasuk that the Rabbeinu Yonah says that that Chochmah, it always goes Chochmah, Bina, and Daas. And I remember there being one place where it goes Bina and then Chochmah. So I remembered it. It is in Yosef, by Yosef, where Paro says V'ata yere Paro ish. Oh, sorry, about Paro and Yosef. V'ata yere Paro ish navon v'chacham. V'shisihu al eretz Mitzrayim. He says, Yosef says, you should find a person who is a navon v'chacham. Okay, so the question is, why does it say navon v'chacham? I don't know if this is relevant, but I read it and something like lit up, and so I want to just put it on the table, even though we're focusing on Rabbeinu Yonah. So Avraham and Rambam says, Chacham more el hasagas hachachma b'foal. Chacham means someone who has acquired wisdom in action, in actuality. Uv'chein aydei habina tusav hachachma. You get chachma through bina. V'chachma hi tachlis habina. Chachma is the outcome of bina. Okay, so I think this is how we usually use the word chachma, right? We use chachma as a thing you are trying to get as like the end goal. Okay, like whether it's whatever chachma satorah, chachma of science. Ulfika hiktim navon lachacham. That's why he says navon before chacham. Lefishu kodem bisman ubeseder, because navon comes before chachma. Bina is a means to get chachma. Okay, but sometimes you can be a navon, someone who like knows how to think, but you don't get chachma. Like many of the that's a weird paradox there. The sharp amei haaretz. I don't know who he's talking about. Also, you can sometimes get a little bit of chachma through just working really hard, even though your like understanding and your sharpness are inferior. If you are navon and a chacham, then that is perfection. Okay, so that is another way that bina and chochmah are used, not like Rabbeinu Yonah. Yeah.
And in Shemona Esrei, it's also not in the
Daas, yeah, correct. Right. Yeah, correct. What is the well, the Nusach Sfard, they have
It's a different. I know.
Chochmah and Bina Daas, I think they say, right?
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, right. And we haven't even talked about Haskell yet. That's another thing. And I think the Rambam's warning about he says this about the soul, and he also says about a Chochmah that you need to be aware that these terms are used in different ways in different contexts, and you need to be sensitive to not just plugging in the definitions of Chochmah and Daas. Right. Well, the Ashkenazic one is I've learned as well, and there's accurate ideas there too.
That's not accurate ideas, but the text has. So.
Okay. So, but then Avraham and Rambam, I think, does go back now, and he says the Rabbeinu Yonah's. Let's see. He says, "V'lifamim yipol shem navon al tam acher." Sometimes the word navon means something else. He totsaos hamada mehakta mosehen. This is arriving at conclusions of knowledge through premises. So again, deriving things from premises. Al pizeh amar Shlomo k'nei chachma k'nei bina. Shlomo in Mishlei says, acquire chachma, acquire bina. So he does it in that order. Amar hakasuv anashim chachamim unvonim. Also by the judges, it says chachamim and nevonim. Okay, so he's acknowledging that there is that sometimes it goes the other way also. Okay, so we did not actually finish doing Rabbeinu Yonah last time because we were in the middle of reading Rabbeinu Yonah on our pasuk, and the footnote is what took us to those pesukim. So let's go back to our pasuk. Okay, and again, our goal here is to understand the pasuk at least according to Rabbeinu Yonah, if not otherwise. So he says in our pasuk, he says, since he warned his son not to be jealous of the wealth of the wicked and their tranquility, and not to desire their friendship and to profit from their money, he says now that you should be involved in Chochmah, Tevunah, and Daas, and through that you'll get tranquility and wealth aside from the perfection of the soul and eternal life. Okay, so we said that the two previous pesukim warned against being attracted to rich gangstas, right? And if you just tell your kid to stay away from those guys, he's still going to want money. So how do you get money? You get money through Chochmah, but you also through attachment to Chochmah will get perfection. Okay. Uvitfuna yiskonan, which means it will be firmly established and will continue. And he gives rayas. V'hine mina chachma yagia ela tevunah v'hi malal gedola mina chachma kasher higdam milcha kvar. From chachma you'll get to tevunah, which is a higher level. And then footnote in the other version of Rabbeinu Yonah says, from tevunah you'll get to daas, right? Umina tevunah el hadas. Al kain nasan habinyan lechachma v'hakium v'hamida letevunah umaleas hachadarim kol hon yakar v'naim ladas v'chulei. Okay, so now we have all of our definitions, and we're almost ready to finish learning the Rabbeinu Yonah. But then he quotes, did you know that Rabbeinu Yonah has drushos on the Torah?
No, where is it?
So there's only one printed edition of it that I've ever seen, and I have not seen a copy of it in yeshiva, and I don't know where it can be found. So unfortunately, I don't know. I don't think it's available online, but I haven't done an exhaustive search. But he quotes the drushos on Parshas Truma that says, "Ukvar amarnu pa'amim ki chachma hi mash adam laman mirabo o min asfarim." Okay, so Chochmah is what a person learns from his Rav or from Sfarim. V'tevunah hi ma shemizbonin me'atzmo aide hakdamos ma shalamad. So Tevunah is what a person learns on his own through the premises that he has learned. Again, premises here, whenever you're talking about facts and theories, a fact, what we call facts are really the outcomes of theories, right? And so it's a relative term. Like you take anything in in halacha, like any area, any halachic fact really is just like the nafkamina of a whole sugya. So sometimes you can relate to that information on a factual level and use it to arrive at further knowledge, but then sometimes you treat those facts as a tevunah outcome, which you have to analyze how we got there. Okay, so I'm just saying that because don't think that you can just label any particular thing. This is Chochmah and this is Tevunah, or this is a fact and this is a theory. It depends on what your goal is and what level you're analyzing it at. So he says Tevunah is what you understand on your own through premises that you've learned. O ma shehisig mehamuskalos harishonos. Now that's a different definition. So he's saying the premises come either from what you've learned or from muskal rishon, which are the innate quote unquote ideas in your mind that Aristotle says you get through sense interpretations, and Plato says you get from in the other world, and whatever.
Aristotle says what?
Aristotle says that all muskalos rishonos are initially derived through your sense impressions, as opposed to being intrinsic in the soul. What was that?
Like from childhood? Or?
Yeah, from early age, like I guess from early your earliest intellectual development. Like just as examples of this, right? Is like the principle of non-contradiction, right? Or the definitions of whole and part, right? Like those Adler's favorite example is that you cannot define. If I ask you to define what the concept of whole is without making reference to the concept of parts, you can't do it. And if I ask you to define what the concept of part is without any reference to the concept of whole, you can't do it. It's just our minds have this concept of part and whole, or essence and accident. You can't really define those things, or quantity, right? If I ask you define what the number 2 is, or define what we mean by quantity, you just can't define it. It's just like concepts in the mind, or define reality. Well, that's that which is. What do you mean by that? Well, it's the opposite of that which is not, So
this is self-evident truths.
Self-evident truths, yeah. There's Adler calls these self-evident truths, and so the machlokus I think between Aristotle and Plato is Aristotle I think holds that these come through your sense perceptions, and I think Plato holds that these are like built into the soul. Okay, so for our purposes it doesn't matter, because he's saying that Tevunah is either what you extrapolate from facts you've learned or from the premises that are in your mind, however they got there. Okay. Daas hima she'ole biyado achar hahisbonenus hanachona. That's a slightly different definition. Daas is what you get after proper hisbonenus, after the proper application of bina. L'chein yiyaches kan binyan habayis lechochmah v'hiskonenus leTevunah. Therefore, it ascribes the building of the house to Chochmah and the firmly establishing it to Tevunah. V'hi hasmadaso v'kiumo. That means its continued existence from Sfas Emes Tikun La'ad. Umilui chadarav hon yakar v'naim l'das. And filling its rooms with precious wealth is from Das. V'ulai yirta lomar hon yakar v'naim be'enav. Maybe it means precious and pleasant in his own eyes. Kamosh amru ezehu ashir hasmeach b'chalko. Oh, that's a good addition there. I mean, maybe not. It doesn't mean that he's going to have like emerald goblets and like Lamborghinis, but it might mean that it's precious in his eyes because he's sameach in it. Okay, meaning not like by society standards. Ur'e sham bi'urim nosafim. Okay, and we should look there for other interpretations. Okay, last Rabbeinu Yonah, and then we'll put together a thing. If there is one more Rabbeinu Yonah on pasuk 4. Is there?
Yeah, last time.
Okay. Left. Thank you. Uvdars chadarim imalu kolhun Yaakov naim mipnei shadas kolelas ofane machshavos bnei adam. Since Das, Das is so hard to pin down. It feels like he's switching definitions every time. Das includes the ways of human thoughts or plans, kasher afarish, as I will explain. Alkein yitzape bal hadas bedarche haravachim. Okay, this is your business advice that you're looking for. Therefore, the Baal Das should keep careful watch on profits. That's like profits, and the paths of successes. The istacher b'kama inyanim. I think istacher means not that he should hire himself out. I think it means that he should generate reward for himself. V'malu chadarav kol hon Yaakov na'im, and fill his rooms with all sorts of wealth. I'm not sure where he's going yet. Kesef v'zahav b'samim v'zeinim, silver and gold and spices and weapons. Ra'amos v'gavish v'rav pninim. Okay, I don't know what that is. V'yitachin ki binyan habayis v'hiskonin habinyan v'himali hachadarim mashal l'kinyan malos nevesh. Okay, that goes to the Derech Nister. All right, so let's try to get this here. Okay, so what can we do from all the Rabbeinu Yonahs we've seen about our pasuk here? Okay, it does seem to be that there is a certain order. I guess the question is, should we view these as 3 levels of success? Like some guys only have Chochmah and therefore they're only able to build a house. Some guys have Tevunah and they're able to establish it. And some people get Daas and they can be tremendously successful. Or is this talking even within one person that these are the 3 stages you need to go through, or are they both the same? Can we apply this to other examples than a house? What do we say?
What was the last thing that
I don't know. he said that you need to bal Das. So he said Das is okay. Well, in the drasha he said Das is like. To me, it sounds like this. To me, it sounds like Chochmah is taking facts and arriving at theories, and then Daas is like taking theories or like the net results of all the theories and arriving at like some sort of like master approach or master theory, like a higher level of abstraction. So that's what he said in the footnote. And then here he's saying a Baal Das needs to look at all the different ways you can profit and then do them. I don't know what else he's saying. Yeah, David. Sorry, hold on a second. Let me turn up Isaac's volume, and then Isaac, I'm going to call on David first. Yeah, David.
It thought not a full on anything, but
yeah,
just it seems that there is a differentiation to make them between like being able to understand, say, like when you're observing something.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, when I apply pressure to my water bottle and lift, it will go up.
Yeah.
Versus, and there's like you can have like a certain understanding of cause and effects. Then there's like another deeper understanding of then how those cause and effects work, which sounds like he's making some differentiation there. And then from there, if you can actually understand the whole system better, you can work with it better.
Yeah.
It's like more direct. This to that.
Okay, that's good. I'm thinking similarly, but I'm gonna hear what Isaac says first. Yeah, Isaac.
Well, first I'm asking, can you just restate what we said? What he says Chochmah is?
Chochmah is received knowledge, either from teachers or from books.
Okay, and what about that?
What we call facts. I think facts is like a good way to describe Chochmah. Like if you have to say it in a word in Chochmah in this context is factual knowledge. Yeah.
Which terms were the pasuk about listening attentively and then thinking about it?
Yeah, lahakshiv l'chochmah oznecha, tate libecha l'tevunah.
Okay, so I'd say I have a thought about that applied to this pasuk.
Yeah.
That I think if a person approaches business with by really trying to understand the facts of the situation as they are and not trying to understand them based on how it would like how it feels to them.
Yeah.
That can help in like many different ways where you just won't run into the pitfalls that like tons of pitfalls that would cause you to not be able to let's say like establish wealth or preserve it.
Yeah.
Which I would say are building a house and Yiskodan.
Yeah. Okay. I think the just in terms of the building. So I think we've got the building of the thing, the preserving it, and then the success. Okay, those are the three levels. And you're trying to tie this into the previous chapter 2 pesukim about how you need both the intellectual thing and the emotional thing. Okay, I like the approach. Yeah, Ariel.
All right. So the last thing we just read in terms of the prophets. Yeah. He's referring that to Don, right?
Yeah.
Now,
and that's what I don't understand quite how he's treating Daas there.
So I think in the answer, can we just go back one more time because I feel like there's like one thing I'm missing. Like, is he saying that you should take profits and fill your houses with wealth?
Yeah, I'm gonna just read it again. Since Daas encompasses the ways of the thoughts or plans of people, as I will explain, therefore the person who has Daas should watch the ways of prophets and the path of successes, and he should reward himself, or generate reward for himself, or hire himself out, in many matters, and fill his rooms with all these good things.
Okay, I think I have something.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think for that specific thing, like that's like Don is almost in a sense of like him executing, like everything that he's already done, like he's already being profitable.
Okay.
Right. So now the question is, now that you have all this profit, right? Now there are multiple things you could do with that money. You can either, invest it back into your business.
Yeah.
Or pay off your expenses. Mm-hmm. But I think like what you should do is you should set aside money for yourself as a reward, so that because that's ultimately if you don't give it to yourself, like even like a little bit, then like you're not really actualizing or not.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's like taking profit first for yourself and then putting everything back to your business, and that way, and if there are more expenses, you can like be a better businessman and just lower your expenses.
Right.
Like just talk like like let's start from the beginning. You're doing this for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're in business. You're doing it to make money. If you don't make money, then you're not really actually
right.
Daas.
Right.
Yeah, that's
yeah. I think the example or the principle you're saying is easier to see on a corporate level than on an individual level. That you see that there are companies or organizations that will spend their money, and of course they're going to invest in the business, but they're going to spend their money to make their employees happy, like throwing a party or like giving them like bonuses, That's part of the incentive to continue, like the enjoyment of the success is part of the incentive to be more successful.
Yeah, like there's a book called Profit First that talks about this. Like does revenue minus expenses equals profit?
Yeah.
But he flips it to revenue minus profit equals expenses. Right? It's really the same thing. It's not a definitive rule. It's just most people don't reward themselves first. These things reward yourself first and then pay for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, I hear that. Sorry. Yeah, Isaac.
I was just gonna say about what Ariel said.
Yeah.
Like, I think that a pitfall of the way that of like focusing on accumulating wealth, I think lends itself to focusing on growing the number in your bank account higher, as opposed to using the money for the things that you want to use money for.
Right. Meaning only focus on the hone and not the yakar v'na'im, Yeah.
And so then you end up like, instead of like, let's say, you end up with like dying with, $10 million in the bank, as opposed to having bought $10 million worth of, enjoyment and pleasantness and, making your life easier,
Right. I know we're not in the direct necessary. I know you do have something to say, but I just want to say this point right now really quickly. I forgot if I shared this just with individuals or if I share it with a group, but like it's important, you're in yeshiva now to like build your skills, to be involved in like, to be able to be an independent learner, and like, it's very important to keep up with shiur and all your siddharim, but you also have to take time to like use your chochmah to just apply to stuff that you enjoy, like learn areas for fun, just for pure pleasure. Otherwise, you're going to have that kind of burnout that like Isaac or Ariel are talking about, where you're just driven on the number in your lamdan rating, without actually like enjoying like v'harevna, like you have to enjoy your Torah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've had that experience that you're talking about. So
soul crushing. It's soul crushing. You just come day in and day out dragging yourself to like it becomes a chore, a burden. Yeah, that's no good. Yeah, Yaakov.
You know where he explains this?
I have no idea. I know we didn't read this, but it sounds like that's another approach. So I'm not sure. I have to check the other edition of Rabbeinu Yonah and see if they have a different footnote there. Unless he's going to explain it in pesukim that come after this. That's another possibility. Yeah, Sean?
Yeah. Can you switch back to the concept?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not a full approach.
Yeah.
And the Yit Konan.
Yeah.
Could it also be directed?
He should establish it firmly.
Yeah, instead of established, because like kavanah can also be. Right, that's.
You mean like he should orient it?
It will be directed, meaning. I was reading that as like he's communicating. So first you need like wisdom. So you need like a blueprint of the house.
Yeah.
Right. Then you need to be able to actually transfer the abstract into and communicate that into the physical, right? Into the actual actions of it.
Yeah.
And that's a separate part of the understanding. So like something looks good on paper.
Yeah.
And then there's the translating it of paper into reality. That's the directed. And then the knowledge I'm not fully set on, but that then once you have this thing, right, that you had on paper, so now, there was an example that I heard, right? So somebody you look at a key, right, and you ask them like, what is this? And they say it's a key. And then you ask them, well, what is this in a self-defense course? Right? It's not a key.
It's an eye gouger,
It's a weapon. Right? So then it's being able to, now that you have the actual thing, know that it goes beyond what you just saw on paper. And then being able to see that means that then you're able to construe it and reframe it in different ways to different people.
Yeah.
And then it's going to massively increase its value.
Yeah.
And then, right, it's going to be filled with all these other realities and things and purposes that you can utilize it towards.
Yeah.
And that's like, right, the filling the room is now like, the room can be filled with so much more. And now that you understand that it goes well beyond whatever it was that you had initially.
Okay, so I think I like the ideas you're saying. I don't think you can read Yiskonan in that, like you could translate it that way, both based on my own intuition and based on the translations we've seen, and then the BDB, like clicking on all Torah and seeing the different translations. But I definitely like the idea, and I want to give my example of this pasuk as applied to not a house, and then like I think use that to illustrate your point about the Daas. Okay, so I think a really good example of this is cooking, okay, or being a chef. Okay, right. So Chochmah is following a recipe. Okay, Tevunah is understanding why the recipe works, right? Chochmah, you can know that it works because you make it and it works, and it also comes from people who know what they're doing. Tevunah is like, okay, well, I see this recipe, and now the question is like, well, why did adding in more eggs, or why did using, coconut flour instead of almond flour, like make it have this texture, and then you can like extrapolate your own variations and techniques. Daas is going to be, and I'm not 100% clear on Daas. Daas is going to be where instead of confining yourself to like direct navin davar mitoch davar and like just applying, mixing and matching or tweaking or like applying like a more like localized minor adjustments to the thing, you come up with a completely new cuisine or a completely new role for this kind of thing. And if you look at, I don't know how many people watch, I don't think anyone here watches Chef's Table on Netflix, but you look at all the great chefs in the world right now, and they all basically took like, they went through this process as they started by like, okay, I'll say the thing which I said on Monday night is the Bruce Lee's maybe I said this here also. Bruce Lee's 3 stages of learning a craft is learn the rules, master the rules, dissolve the rules, right? That you first have to familiarize yourself with the basic facts. What has worked in the past? What are the formulas that the great masters have done? Then master the rules, understand why they work, not just that they work, but why they work, to understand the underlying principles. Then you can take those objects that people are only looking at in one way, like the key, and then completely reframe it in a different way. Like maybe again, I don't have any particular examples, but like maybe the thing that everyone looked at as like has to be a sweet dessert can be a savory like main dish, and you could use this ingredient in a completely different way, or like creating fusion cuisines like the most recent episode of Chef's Table I saw. They have I don't think the most recent episode is on pizza, and there was a guy who was a Japanese chef who like integrated Japanese cuisine with pizza, which is not something that you think you can do. Those seem like mutually exclusive, and came up with a completely new new way of relating to all the ingredients, all the processes. So what's the practical? What are we getting as a practical idea here? I feel like we're in the practical zone. I feel like we need to like land it. Like maybe it would help to say what is the Havamina, and I think one of the Havaminas is I think people think that they can do these later steps, that they could go out of order. One of the classic mistakes that people make in any area of development is they go out of order and they want the exciting part first. And that's your diagram of the creativity, thing, is that they think that they could be creative without mastering the basic stuff, and you do need to go in this order.
The other Havamina is that there are people who just don't want to be creative.
Okay. So that's an interesting thing is right. So here's the interesting thing is I would not say that that's a mistake. Okay, I think that not every no correct right. But in other words, I think just to spell this out here, not everyone is cut out to be a creative genius in every field, and not everyone is even cut out to be a mavin or navon in every field. Sometimes just being a chacham is all you can have. Yeah, I know it's not what you mean. I'm saying this as my own idea, inspired by a true Ariel comment. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so what I mean, it's like, you could have all the facts, be a chacham in that area, like you're not capable of being, taken to the next level.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that they don't want to take it to the next level because they feel that what they already have is great. Like who am I to be better than that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're that's a self-limiting tendency. Yeah. That's a good point. Isaac and then David. Yeah.
I think the havamina of this pasuk is that there are other midos that are like how you accumulate wealth, in order to be wealthy, to amass wealth, you need to be diligent. You need to be and like diligence is the thing that gets you wealth.
Mhm.
If you're not putting in 12 hours a day, you're not going to be able to do it. Or like creativity. Like if you're not a creative person, you're not going to be able to come up with with a business idea that can make you a lot of money. Or people focus on specific traits that might be important and might help.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because those traits are important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really the thing that you need, the thing that will make or break your success.
Yeah. Is the three.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good point. Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah. David.
Just one thought also from something you were saying.
Yeah.
Where you're talking about like someone might be like a expert in like some area.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's also sometimes there will be this, like this person's an expert in this area, but I'm better than him in some other regard. And so, I should be able to just step right into the area and just do it without having to also do whatever in that one specific area.
Okay.
He really worked out that.
So that's another good application of the puzzle, which is like a diagnostic tool that you should be aware of in every area of your talents or successes or like involvements. Where am I holding right now? To what extent am I in the Chochmah stage, the Tevunah stage, or the Daas stage? And like, it's not transferable. Like you can't just like go from one area to the other and be just because you're a great lamdan in Gemara doesn't mean that you're going to be able to be like a philosopher, Yeah. Let's just, for the sake of we don't have time to work on it. Let's just finish reading the Rabbeinu Yonah. I know he doesn't use the term derech nister, but he says, V'takin ki binyan habayis v'hiskonin habinyan v'himali hachadarim mashal lakinyan malos hanefesh. It could be that all three stages are an allegory for acquisition of the virtues of the soul. Al derech chachmos bansa besa, like it says earlier that the wise women builds their house. I don't know what the plural and singular is here. V'binyan hu habechira v'tshuva. Whoa, okay, I didn't see that coming. The building is free will and tshuva. The hiskonin abayis habinyan, and the firmly establishing the house is hamaras hateshuva, is making the teshuva last. Shelo yiharsena hayetzer hamizgaver hamikrim. In other words, that it will not be broken down by the yetzer that like momentarily overpowers you or by circumstances or like chance occurrences. V'hi madregas hanikius haniskeres b'divrei zal. Whoa. Okay, this is like opening a whole new area. That is the quality of nikius. Of cleanliness, okay, in the statement of Chazal. Anyone familiar with that? The statement, this is the thing that Mishlei Podcast is based on. Avodah Zarah Chaf Beis. You know what I'm talking about? That this leads to that, and this leads to that, and that leads to that. I don't know well enough to say it, so I gotta look it up. I know that was just like the vaguest description I just gave. But you'll see what I mean. Chaf Beis in Avodah Zarah.
You mean Doraris?
No. This is Avodah Zarah. Chaf Beis. Bekius. Yeah. Mikan Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. Torah mevia lidei zehirus. So Torah brings you to caution. Zehirus mevia lidei zrizus. Caution brings you to alacrity. Zrizus mevia lidei nikius. Alacrity brings you to cleanliness. Nikius mevia lidei prishus. Cleanliness brings you to abstinence. Prishus mevia lidei tahara. Abstinence brings you to purity. Tahara mevia lidei. Okay, so I don't know if this is what gears this is. Chasidus, piety or extra righteousness. Chasidus mevia lidei anava. Extra righteousness brings you to humility. Anava mevia lidei yiras chet. Wow, that's weird. You think yiras chet is like at the beginning, right? That brings you to fear of sin. Yiras chet mevia lidei kedusha. That brings you to kedusha. Kedusha mevia lidei ruach hakodesh. Kedusha brings you to ruach hakodesh. Ruach hakodesh mevia lidei tchias hamesim. And that brings you to Tchias Mesim. V'chasidus gedol mikulin shneimar az dibarta b'chazon l'chasidecha. So Rabbeinu Yonah is taking a stance here, saying that the Bekius of that statement is referring to or corresponds to the perseverance of tshuva and protecting it from your yetzer overpowering you in our pasuk. Okay, and then v'himale chadarim and filling of the rooms, kinyan hamalos and nefesh b'yira v'ahava udvekus. That is acquiring virtues of the soul, such as fear of God, love of God, and clinging to God. V'hi nimtzeas b'malos adas, and that is found in the levels of Daas. Kamosh kazuv ruach Daas v'yiras Hashem. Pesachnu b'dvarim hamaskilim yavino. We've just given you an introduction, and those who are maskil will understand. Okay, so that's not us. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think this ended up being a good pasuk, and we got a nice references to or nice refreshing of the terminologies here. The question is like, what are we asking for in Tachon in Ladam Das? But that's a separate inquiry. Yeah. Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Tefilah shiur.
Yeah, for Tefilah shiur. Yeah.